Hey guys, this is blowing up on the tweeters, and I'd definitely like to give my take. It seems that this director, and believe it or not, I haven't seen Kingsman, but like my dad has, he loved it. A lot of friends have seen it. I think Mark really likes it. Kingsman's Matthew Vaughn dares to ask, why don't we just reboot Star Wars? And this is a pretty controversial thing. A lot of people are saying, no, no way, you can't reboot it. A lot of people are saying, yeah, reboot it, because of the sequels or whatever. Now, my answer to this is obviously going to be controversial because, well, but it might surprise you as well. So he says, why are these characters so hollowed from 77 that you can't redo it for a new audience? And he goes on to compare James Bond and this and that. So let's get right to it. But then the dark side clearly seizes him, and he remarks that, for me, doing a Star Wars movie is to play with the characters that I loved. So if they said to me, do you want to reboot Star Wars and actually have Luke Skywalker, Solo, Vader, and you do your version of it, that would excite me. When Horowitz suggests to Vaughn that he has a death wish for suggesting this, the writer director shot back with, why not? Why are these characters so hollowed from 77 that you can't redo it for a new audience? And it's true, as we've seen with James Bond and a lot of other um, franchises, they do reboot them over time. I mean, Spider Man, right? Of course, Star Wars is the most iconic, but I mean, James Bond is pretty up there too. But you're telling a story. So my view of this, well, let's finish it. Interestingly, Vaughn distinguishes between the franchise's TV output, which he categorizes as brilliant, from its currently moribund theatrical prospects. Star Wars is the Skywalker family, and that's where I think they've gone wrong because they've forgotten it needs an epic new film. So I don't think he's talking about George Lucas going wrong. I think he's talking about Disney. And my thoughts on this are that yes, perhaps Disney has focused far too much on shows. And I think this, for them is obviously a huge incentive because if you have a ton of shows, you're making money every month on a subscription. We know this. But at the same time, they've watered down and diluted so much of the characters in these shows by dragging it out and creating just boring archetypes and exposition where you don't really need it, and then action where you don't really need it to kind of bolster the final last two episodes of a season or whatnot, right? So I feel like, can we reboot Star Wars? My answer to that is not so much reboot, but completely redo, like remake it from the ground up. So yeah, you take Luke and Obi-Wan and Vader and Yoda and all these characters, and you can literally redo it, but with different names, different sceneries, and just maybe have the same themes. Kid who doesn't really know where he belongs. He comes from a line of not so much royalty, but well, sort of, but also great power and abilities and potential, and he's almost like this orphan kid. It's the same kind of trope that's done in like every movie. I mean, you see it with Voldemort. It's the same thing. Orphan boy, super powerful. Harry Potter, orphan boy, super powerful. Great lineage, right? So it's you see this a lot in movies and characters, and it obviously makes it interesting. And they did it with Rey too. At the end they decided that she's a Palpatine, and it's like the whole time you're looking at this character who isn't much, but they're going to become something, and so you're along for the journey to see how they morph into this. So they build a big backstory, like talk a big game for the their ancestors or whoever it might be. You are the descendant of Grabowski or whatever. It's like stuff like that. So I feel like with them wanting to redo Star Wars, like if he ever did this, I would actually be down for it because it's not touching Luke Skywalker or anything like that. It's giving a different rendition of a fan fiction of what could have been. And for me, instead of just redoing Star Wars, I would go back in time or go forward in time, like thousands of years. The Old Republic is such an untapped resource where we can get brand new stories of new characters that we don't even know about. They obviously don't, they're inspired by legends, but they're not getting everything from legends, right? It's not verbatim. We're not getting like a Darth Revan movie, right? Unfortunately, or a Darth Bane movie. So they obviously are taking inspiration from a lot of legend stuff and just sort of warping it and changing the names and changing certain key points in their storyline. And I think they could do that with, like, they could entirely reboot the franchise by creating something Game of Thrones style where, like, they're going back in time thousands of years where There is no dependency on the Skywalker timeline, which they've ruined, in my opinion. There is no dependency on anything to do with the Empire or Palpatine or Snoke or Plagueis, and it's just like thousands of years, either in the back or in the front. And I think that would really revamp a lot of interest for Star Wars if they do it right. And that's a big if. But also, they got to veer away from these shows. I think these shows are starting to really kill Star Wars off because they don't know how to write. So here we have this story, A to Z. This is what happens. Okay, let's stretch that into an 8-episode arc, 12-episode arc, Bad Batch, 16-episode arc, season. Well, I mean, like, how many of these episodes are actually really for the plotline, for the story, and how many are just bullshit, to be real, right? To kind of like prolong the episode and have the cliffhanger. Every end of every episode has to have a cliffhanger. We don't need that. In a movie, you're telling a story linear from the start to the end, and you don't need to hook every time there's like a scene changing or something, right? Because it's not a show. You don't care. You don't need the person to stay there, for the commercials to come back. You don't need the person to come back to the next episode. You don't need the person to come back for the end of the season because they got their movie ticket. They're sitting they commit to sit to the whole movie, 2 hours, 2.5 hours, and that's it. And so you have to captivate them in that time, right? So even to interest them enough that they want to have a consensus about the film, even if it's crap, to sit through the whole thing so that they have an idea at the end of it so they know what they're talking about to their friends or whoever. Especially today's world where everything is, like very media driven, where everyone's got an opinion on something and they want to share it online, which is beautiful sometimes, and then sometimes it's not. So if he wants to redo Star Wars, I mean, I wouldn't say like necessarily go redo Luke and Vader and all that stuff from the very beginning. If you're going to do that, call them different characters and maybe have like a similar storyline. That I'm cool with. I think that would be refreshing. But overall, just go back in time, man. There is like so much source material in Star Wars where we can pull from and have so much fun with that I think we're just not capitalizing on. And I think it's causing not just a drought because they're like mining so much of this one era that it's like it's going bald at this point. Like there isn't much left to mine and they're ruining it, right? It's not like they're mining it well. They're really like just extracting everything, like the soil. There's nothing's going to regrow. It's bad. So, like Boba Fett, Kenobi, like what are they doing to these characters? So they're not writing with respect, right? They're I don't know what they're doing. So I think going back in time is the answer we need, and then going forwards in time is also the answer. But thousands of years, so we're not even touching George Lucas's Skywalker saga and whatever they created. It's completely irrelevant, and I think that'll be fun, refreshing, new. There's no stigma attached to it. There's no sequels attached to it. There's no prequels attached to it if you hate those. It's just completely fresh. And I think that's the move that they need to do. But yeah, I'd be down for it. I'd be happy to see what happens, what comes of this. So let me know what you guys think. Hope you're having a great day, and I'll see you all in tomorrow's video. Love you. May the Force be with you.